You being you is so freeing for everybody else. But that's the fear we live in, is that somebody is going to not like who I am.
You are going to know me. You're going to know my strong points, but that also means you're going to know my weak points, and allowing people to be there for you at your lowest and your darkest.
I'm just there to say, it's going to be okay. You're going to make it.
And what's deep inside you, in your core that's been planted there, is what's going to come to the surface. So what are you planting?
That is the longing we have inside of us. Tell me who God says I am.
Welcome to Authentic You, a podcast brought to you by the Women of Jesus Culture.
Welcome back to The Authentic You, a podcast brought to you by the Women of Jesus Culture. I'm your host, CJ Leapshire, and I'm here with
Becky Johnson. We're giggling because it sounded funny.
I am like super good at this.
Because you read that from a script.
I did.
That was obvious. That was awesome. We're going to keep it though, because we're authentic here. And that was authentically what just happened.
Well,
It's authentic CJ.
Yeah.
There's a few
that just happened.
spelling errors that I really wanted to read correctly.
Okay, do it.
Woman of Jesu Culture. I'm your host, CJ Leapshire.
Our producer has a really she's got a track record of spelling though. I have a way to read her text messages, because I'm like, okay, this is what she said, but this is what she meant. Yeah, and sometimes it could go either way. So I'm like, she's either happy with me or she's angry with me, depending on that letter.
Well, my head read moment instead of woman, and so I.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's awesome.
We love Natalie.
Yes. Oh, she's the best.
And we have.
Erica Myberg, the sidekick.
Is this our third podcast?
I like Marvel movies.
This is our third one, and the people love them. Well, at least
really?
3 or 4 people.
Like 3 people? Yes.
Yay! But we
love
seen
3 people.
Are like, I loved it. I felt.
Oh, yes. I've gotten a few texts.
Hey, Cherie Davis.
Oh, hi.
Let's give her a shout out. Davina likes it.
Steady listeners. That's what we have.
Yes.
2
steady listeners at least. So we're glad that you guys like it. But we're excited about this podcast. We have a big podcast ahead. So it's a big one because it was really good content. So CJ, tell us what we're doing on this episode of Authentic You.
So we interviewed at our women's night 5 or 6 women who are at, I hate to use the word stages, but different places of life, or they've just walked through things that everybody has walked through: being single, infertility, a working mom, a single mom, having a kid with special needs. There were lots of different things that I am not remembering right now. A mom of little kids. Anyway, we have a long list of also situations we did not touch, but we wanted to ask 2 basic questions. We didn't want a long conversation. So you on this podcast will get a little bit longer conversation with them, but the night of, we simply asked 2 questions, which is, number 1 was, what do you wish people knew about you in the place you are in life right now? And number 2 was, what causes pain or is difficult when people interact with you in these areas? What I loved about it was they were raw, they were honest, they laid it out there, and it was totally eye-opening.
I think the whole night for all of us, as we planned it, we were like, this is going to be really good. We felt the expectation in our heart, like, wow, this is going to be cool, because how often do you get to give women a voice to, like, okay, now's your moment, like, say it.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was amazing. I mean, we had a full house that night too, like over 400 women, and they were all at tables. And they were all mismatched. Like, it wasn't certain. We encouraged, hey, mix up the table, sit by different people. And then after the discussions, women were talking forever.
We couldn't get them out of there.
Praying for one another. Women who were like, wow, I've never known that about moms who struggle with addiction, or single moms, or I've never even bothered to ask that about what it's like to be divorced. And there was just... I don't know. It was kind of hard to describe what was happening in the room, but it was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Sarah, one of our table leads, told a story of a woman. Do you guys remember what it was?
Yes, she. The woman had been in an abusive relationship, and through their discussions, Sarah said, "Well, what about you? Like, what is not helpful to hear, in your situation?" And she said, "Well, when people would say, 'Hey, you deserve better than that.'"
Yeah,
like
or I would never stay I would never stay.
I would never stay in a relationship where the man was abusing me, and that woman already felt so worthless.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. She said, I already didn't value myself. When women would say that, it just brought her down even more. Like, oh, I don't have the courage to leave.
Yeah. It made her feel worse about herself.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure I've said that to somebody.
Absolutely. And you're trying to help. So you say these things like, this is going to encourage you. And then she said, what I needed to hear was, you're worth more.
Yeah.
So it was just stuff like that that was amazing. And we've been talking about it for months now afterwards.
No, I liked what we wanted to bring across is that to validate every woman in every stage or place that she is in her journey or life, and that it's so unique. Like we are parents of high school kids, and I would not easily put myself in a category, but I realize we are, in a certain category. We have different needs. We want to hear different things. There's certain things that tick us off. That's hard. But to feel like, probably for me, it's like to have every woman know God sees you.
Yeah.
And His grace is enough for where you find yourself right now. And then what we wanted to flow from that is that we would have grace with each other.
Yes.
And be able to be, to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, even if it's for a moment, but to just grow in awareness that we're surrounded by people who are at different spots in their life. And when they talk, that we for a moment can like, well, what is it that I would want to hear in that moment? That is something that I love, because our focus was not so much like necessarily telling you you're okay, but more to encourage each other, hear the person in front of you, become aware of who is it in front of you and what they would like to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about that night and what the focus was.
No, absolutely. I as a mom of a teenager, one of the things I want to scream at people when they want to give me beautiful advice, I mean, just wonderful. If you can hear the sarcasm in my voice, is I just want them to see me. Like, I am a woman just like you. Do you think I like that my daughter's butt cheeks hang out of her shorts? Like, just look at me. Yeah. Of course I don't. But you know what? You're not where I'm at. And there is a whole lot of stuff I'm fighting that I would rather fight for kindness and respect than her butt cheeks.
Yeah.
And so I'm letting the butt cheeks hang out today. Because you know what? She's at church.
Totally.
And
I'm thankful for that.
You're probably all offended that her butt cheeks are out at church. But you know what? She's at church.
Yep.
And I would rather have her there, not feeling judged and not feeling like less of a person, because she actually is highly insecure and is trying to wear what's cool.
Totally.
She's not having her butt cheeks hang out because she wants to be a sex object. She wants to be cool.
Totally.
Whether you agree with me or not, just see me.
Yeah.
I'm a woman just like you.
And that's what this night really did. And so CJ wanted to bring it to the podcast because, like we said, we just want to share what's going on here with all of you. So we're going to cut right to the discussion right away to give you as much of it as possible. It was a really fun discussion that we had with three ladies, and hopefully we get to do this again on this podcast because there are just endless scenarios of women, and it's really just fascinating to hear them. It was really cool. So we hope you like it.
The presence of God changes everything. With just one encounter, our lives, homes, and cities can be transformed. We're excited to gather for Encounter Conference 2018 in 2 locations, Sacramento, California, and Manchester, UK. During our 3 days together in each city, our heart is that you would have a life-changing encounter with the love and power of God, and that you would be equipped to walk in the fullness of His call on your life. Visit encounter18.com to register. Again, that's encounter18.com to register. Encounter18.com.
Hello, ladies. Well, everyone who wants to listen, because I'm sure there's many men that enjoy the women's podcast. I am here with our special guest today. I'm excited for you guys to hear what they have to say. And I'm going to have each one introduce themselves and just tell them a little bit about yourself. So why don't you start?
Okay. I am Dana Regulus. I am 54 years old. I am the mother of 19-year-old triplets. 2 of which are no longer living at home. And I have 1 daughter at home with special needs. And it's just been a big season of transition in a lot of different areas.
And I am Chandra Medina, and I am 36. And actually, I turned 37 this month, so it gets kind of weird to say 36 because 37 is always on my tongue, but not yet. But almost there. I am a single mom of 3 teenagers. I have an 18-year-old and a 16 and 15-year-old. And my son just graduated high school yesterday and starting to get ready to transition him to college in Michigan in these next couple months. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Hi, I am Molly Williams. I work full-time for Jesus Culture. I'm single. I'm in my early 40s.
We'll say 30s.
I keep forgetting that I'm in my 40s, actually. I hadn't been in there long. So. Conveniently forgetting that I'm in my 40s.
I'm with you. Me too.
I am a worship leader and, have a big family back in North Carolina, which is why I talk the way I do. And been at Jesus Culture for 2.5 years. And, that's me.
Perfect. Well, I'm super excited to have you ladies here. And just so you know, I still sometimes slip and say I'm 19. And that was 22 years ago. So you're doing, actually, I don't know how old I am, 21 years ago. You're doing pretty well.
Thanks.
For that, yeah. Well, I asked you ladies on here because we did the panel and I was so impacted by each one of you. Like, it hasn't left me. It was things I learned from my life personally from things that you guys all said. It challenged me. I hope it made me a better woman, a better friend, somebody to walk with better. And I just want I want our listeners to get to hear what you guys have to say. So Dana, we had you on because I wanted to hear a woman's perspective on infertility, which I will say infertility is a huge thing to talk about because everybody's looks different. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about yours.
Okay. My husband and I got married. I got married at 25. And interestingly, I was always kind of fearful that I would have trouble getting pregnant. And a couple years after we got married, I started trying to get pregnant and couldn't. And it just started this really long 7-year, emotionally exhausting, heartbreaking, super emotional journey. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up actually doing in vitro fertilization. We did it 3 times. And I always believe that whether we had our babies supernaturally or God provided for us to have an in vitro, it was all miraculous. And that I was believing and believing and believing to have babies. And we finally did. As I mentioned, we had triplets, and they're miracle babies. Yes. But it was a super, super trying time.
So when you were walking through that journey, what do you wish people knew or understood as you were in the middle of it?
I think one of the main things, like we talked about at the women's meeting that we had, is sometimes things that people say that may seem hurtful or insensitive at the time. And I was thinking about it actually today, and I realized a lot of those things are actually really good things that people are saying, but maybe I'm not ready to hear them, or they're not good for me at the time. So one of the examples of that is, when you're not getting pregnant, then people will say, well, you can always adopt. And adoption is a good thing. It's a great thing. I have adopted nieces and nephews, and I'm a super strong supporter of adoption. But I was believing to conceive. Yeah. And so I really I believed that that's what was going to happen in my life, and that's what I was standing for. Yeah. And I really needed people to encourage me in that.
Yeah. No, I myself had a few years where I a hard time getting pregnant. And I remember just moments of people with the greatest hearts coming up to me.
Yeah.
Or even, it was this uncanny ability to know, like, I just took pregnancy tests that morning. And they're like, oh my gosh, are you pregnant? And you're like, no. I'm never going to be pregnant, you stupid jerk. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, but I remember people saying that, or my favorite, which was actually totally correct, but it made me want to punch everyone in the face, was the timing isn't right.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'll show you timing.
That's my second one that I had written down, because people always say that, and really, again, it's a good thing.
It's right.
It's
actually.
right. It's absolutely right. So I had God's timing in the negative thing and in the positive thing. And the thing is, when we're walking through it, we have in our minds all these ideas of when it should be, why this is the perfect time. You know, I had a million reasons why it should be now and why I knew the perfect time. But the reality is, God knows the perfect time. And just the other day, I was talking to two of my girls on the phone, and they were sharing a testimony of something that happened in their life. Okay, I may cry. You can't see, but it was just, I was talking to them and celebrating a testimony. I wasn't even thinking about infertility. I wasn't thinking about my journey. You got to remember, this was 19 years ago, right? So I wasn't even thinking about it. And God just dropped in my heart and said, your girls had to be born exactly when they were born to be exactly where they are today. And it's like, on this side of it, I completely get it. And I'm like, yes, Lord, I see exactly why they were born when they were born. But when you're walking through it, you know, you just think that God can make it work whenever it's supposed to work. But they're exactly where they need to be right now, even as far as going to Jesus culture. If my girls would have been born 5-7 years earlier, you know, we wouldn't have been at this church. They wouldn't have had so many of the experiences that has made their life what it is now.
Yeah. No.
So that
so
timing thing is a big one.
And it's such a hard balance when I talk to women where they're at right now you don't want to dismiss or make it small, the struggle with timing in the moment. But at the same time, I'm like, there is perspective there for you.
Right.
Like, I remember, it's funny because I do think it's recognizing your place in somebody's life. Like, I had lots of people that I was like, you don't know me. You haven't walked this journey with me. So thank you for that cliche God's timing comment.
Right.
But you have no idea what I'm walking through. But yet, when I had like a mom in my life who had sat next to me when I cried, look at me and say, I honestly don't feel like this is God's timing yet.
Right.
That one I could hear and go, it's painful, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. And so for us as women to remember, don't dismiss it, even though you've already been through it, so we can look and go, it really is true. It's still, it's not fun to hear.
And I think we're always, as women, trying to encourage each other and come up with answers and make things work. And I mean, I know I have said the wrong thing, I'm sure, so many times to so many people, but out of a right heart. You know?
Yeah.
Just wanting to be encouraging and wanting to be helpful, but probably not being super sensitive. So I think just really what you were saying about the relationship that you have, and just really letting people hear that you understand the place that they're in. And it's okay not to understand. It's okay not to have the answer. Like, gee, I don't get it. You know, I don't get it. I'm sorry, but I will believe with you and keep praying with you and, encourage hope. Because when you're on a super long journey, it's hard to keep your hope up, you know? So just really encouraging hope and instilling hope in that person that's believing for a long time.
My favorite thing, before we move on to somebody else, that people used to say to me when I was trying to get pregnant, oh my gosh, these people need to be hit in the head with a frying pan. Sorry if you're one of these people, but learn and don't say this to a woman trying to get pregnant. They would come and they'd be like, oh man, all my husband has to do is look at me when I'm pregnant. You're like, oh my gosh, well, mine's looked at me a lot. It hasn't worked. It's so funny. Nobody's meaning it bad, but it immediately makes you feel like somehow you're less than a woman.
Right.
Like somehow
you're already feeling that.
I might be, I don't know, God made a mistake inside of me somewhere because it's not working. And nobody's trying to do that, but you just...
Right.
That's so why we have this conversation, to know, like, that's a simple statement, but it's so painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's move on. Let's talk to Chandra. Tell us a little bit about what it is, your journey. I mean, your kids are older too, but go back to where you were as a single mom. Well, you're still walking.
Still a single mama.
Share with us what you wish people knew.
I think if I go way back, I look at, I was 36 now. I became a mom at 18. I was actually pretty proud at that time that I at least made it to graduating first and then got pregnant. But, and by the time I was 21, I was pregnant with my third but I was also leaving my ex-husband because it's just a really toxic drugs abuse. It wasn't cool. And I had gotten saved when I was 19, when my son was just a few months old. And God kind of really did this radical thing. But the last thing I expected was to be a single mom. And actually, before I found out I was pregnant with my third, we had actually gone through a separation. And I remember just being terrified, kind of being in this place of going back and forth. And because it was terrifying, the idea of I had these two. And my kids are very close in age. So my oldest two are 18 months apart. So I was like, I'm terrified. And then I always kind of joke that God has such a wonderful sense of humor, because my idea at the time was, no, I can't leave him because I don't want to be a single mom of 2 kids. I can't do that. And then I found out I was going to be a single mom of 3 kids. So God's like, hold on, watch this. Like, hang on. But, it's crazy because even at that time, God knew exactly what I needed when we talk about the timing and the things. Because, dang it, we're going to have to pass those tissues over here. Because my youngest really ended up being my lifeline at that time. Okay. Because after I finally came to that point and where God and I knew that staying in that kind of toxic environment was going to be really toxic for my children, not only for myself, but remember hearing very clearly where the Lord had said, if you stay in this is going to destroy you. But I couldn't do both.
Right.
And it was just getting that bad. And so having the courage to leave when I was 7 months pregnant with Rebecca, I was back home at my parents and all this stuff, and just the depression set in really bad. But you know what? When she was born, she was really my lifeline. She was that joy, this newborn baby who needed me literally every moment. Because then she was a really colicky baby too, so she literally needed me every moment. She had to be in my arms all the time. And I look and looking back, realizing, wow, had it not been for having that newborn at that time, I wouldn't have made it through. I would have gone back or stayed in the same destructive cycle. But the journey definitely was not easy. I dated some. I mean, there was the ups and downs. I mean, I've been through the drug abuse. I've been through the alcohol abuse. I've been through, had some nice drug dealer boyfriends. I mean, it was a pretty crazy life.
Okay.
And thank God for deliverance.
We're just having an honest conversation. Yeah. Were you addicted to drugs?
I was the one. God had to deliver me from some stuff. People look at me now like, what? I know. Like, it's just, trust me, I get it.
Okay.
I remember right when I split up with my ex-husband and had just moved in with my parents. I think Rebecca was just a couple months old, and I was praying in my room. And as I was praying, I was asking God that he would protect my children from all my mistakes. Like, don't let me screw them up.
Yes.
And in my mind at the time, I was thinking about if I spanked them too hard, if I overreacted to something, screaming, that was where my mind was at. And fast forward to a couple years later, after I came out of where he delivered me from the drug addiction and I happened to run into another woman from church who got caught up in the same thing and had lost everything, lost her children, lost absolutely everything. I remember going back to my apartment that night because it messed with me seeing her, and I just kept going to God and was like, what made me so different? Like, why me? Like, that could have easily been me. I didn't understand. Ooh. And he didn't answer me that day, but the next morning, as I'm taking a shower and just in that, I heard him drop in my spirit. He showed me that picture of myself praying 2 years before. And he said, you didn't know the depth and the power of the prayer that you did, but I didn't just save you for you, I saved you for them.
Wow.
And I was just like blown away. And, you know, in that journey of being a single mom, it can be really easy to feel very, very alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, being a young single mom, all my friends were not in the age, they didn't have kids. They couldn't get it. But, you know, you're trying to be this young single person, but yet you're this mom and you're not quite with like the older moms. So it's a really hard place. You don't have a place.
Yeah.
You know, you really don't have a place. And at least it doesn't feel like it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of one of those where you talk about those things, people say, well, God's your husband. God needs to be your husband. Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, like,
thank you.
But it doesn't really help much, you know, but you look at the strength. I look back in hindsight of the strength and the times that were those deepest times, those most intimate times where I wouldn't have said I felt God, but yet you look back and go, you had to have had me.
Yeah.
And through these years, I mean, my children are now, they've transitioned into the teenage years. I can't say that really has changed much, you know, because you still kind of got to find your place. I think I'm just comfortable with my place that after, goodness, my youngest is going to be 16, so about 16 years, it's kind of like, this is my place. I don't have to look for a place. This is my place.
Yeah.
And really, you know, I hate to say it, like, God is my husband. Yes, God is my husband. But it really takes you into having to press into this different place of God.
That's good. So I know people, we were talking about, obviously, with Dana, the mean things. Well, not mean things. The things that people say that can be hurtful or do without meaning to. So what are some of the things, interactions with people that have caused pain? Just to open up people's eyes and hearts to what it is when you interact with a single mom.
Well, I think, and I did mention this at the women's gathering, that the battle was, and kind of that feeling alone of finding those friends, because some of the married women, you know, that if I connected, it would be hard to connect with them, because it was kind of that you get this, I mean, I'm not an unattractive person, so there's this, you know, this perception of this guard of, you know, they're after my husband, or you can't have him in the house. Like, we can go out here, but we can only go, you know, we really can't get that close because I don't want you around here. And I had dealt with that in times, or if I happened to meet the husband first and, you know, having a son, you know, and if connected with my son and just doing, you know, and them taking an active role in my son of either coaching, sports, something like that, I usually would come across, it wouldn't be a verbal thing. That's the thing. It wasn't anything that was ever said, but definitely a very felt of the guards and the looking. And then, because then shortly after that, the person, that guy who was interested in my kid and helping out has disappeared, you know, and you kind of get these things. And, you know, it's ironic because I actually do have a friend who, we joke around now because her husband was my daughter's soccer coach and we coached together. And through the years, they became family. Yeah. And you would think, though, I mean, they're not the Christian ones. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the Christian ones were the ones where I felt that back. But yet I have this really good friend where the guy's like my brother now. And she would even joke around about him being my surrogate husband. And like, he gets on my nerves. I'll send him to your house. He can go hang out over there. But those aren't even the Christians. You know? And so, yeah, I thought that was definitely a tough experience. And having to brace myself and prepare to always be, I would seek out the women at first, you know, on purpose to, like, just put those guards down. Like, I just want to be friends. I don't want your husband.
You mentioned that at the women's night. And I was very, like, it made me stop and think back to being a young married woman in my early 20s. And we were youth pastors. And I remember some of the single moms. And I remember... It's like you can feel your vulnerability, and you know, like you carry strength, and you're doing something that I think if us as women are honest, it's not really about us scared like you're going to steal our husbands, but you're able to do something that we're scared of doing. You know, like I'm scared of being out there on my own, if I'm honest, and so there's a little bit of like, hey, don't look at her because she's got something better than me, honey. So, you know, like, I think if we're honest, it's probably a lot of insecurity that drives us to tell our husbands, stay away. She's going to try to steal you. Well, actually, it's because she's kind of awesome. And, you know, like, I think but that one really shook me because I'm like, if I'm honest, I know I did that. And especially as a Christian, you do it all in the name of we're protecting our family. You know, we can't look at the person and maybe just love the person. And
Right.
Yeah. Right. You also talked about, because at the Women's Night, you talked about that one of the things you wished people did, if I'm remembering correctly, is followed through.
Oh, yes.
On what they said they were going to do. And I thought that was so profound because I can only imagine kids hearing one thing and then somebody not following through.
I think as a mom, especially with the little ones, that was the hardest to watch.
Yeah.
When people would do that. Because they do get their little hopes up.
Totally.
And I look back when they were little and they've written certain things and they tell me things now that just break my heart of the stuff that they felt, because they always felt like there was something wrong with our family. Like there was that they felt that missing piece.
Yeah.
So it was like, if there was that promise of this or that promise of we'll go out or we'll do this and it wasn't taken up on, I mean, people have lives, but to me, I would always think like, wait, what does that teach them?
Yeah.
You know, they already feel like their world is missing some stuff, or they're rejected by whatever and not good enough or whatever. And to have it not be followed through on is just like, wow, that just would just reinforce that in them.
Right.
And so that is something with people I've had too, was as I got older, and they got older, I was able to kind of set that boundary to where it's like, okay, that's great, you said that, but let's make sure it gets done, you know?
Yeah.
And not trying to be super, I don't know, super laying this, no, now you owe us kind of thing, but really it's just kind of like, let's please do that. Otherwise, just don't say it. That's
just
okay.
Don't say it.
It's okay. You can.
That was a big one for me because you get moved by a kid. It doesn't matter if they're with a single mom or just kids move you, but to recognize, like I can't. It made me stop and think, like, how many have I ever done that to a kid? I probably have. Like you see them, and you're like, you need to come over this summer. Like we need to have a barbecue. And then you don't realize that for some kids that may not be a big deal because they have barbecues, but they might look like, oh my gosh, I would love, you've got a dad over at your house and I bet he plays basketball with you, and to not be flippant.
They hang on to it. I remember that. They would hang on to it, especially my son. He would hang on to it. And then it's like, so are we going to go? So remember they said? Like, are you going to call? And you're like, well, I'm not going to call him. But like, hey, remember you said? Like, we could go to your barbecue,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just always, I think, has always stuck with me and something I would always had to kind of fight to counteract from taking root within them with people.
Yeah. No. Oh, you're an amazing mom.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, let's move on to Molly. Molly's one of my favorite people. I like her a lot. And I'm excited for you guys to hear from her. So, Molly, you, I laugh sitting here because I'm like, to me, Molly is, you're just a lot younger than you would, I would never know you're the age you are. Just
a young spirit.
You are. And you carry yourself very, you're mature, but you don't walk in like an offense. I don't know how else to put it, but sometimes there's like women hit a certain age, and I feel like there's a little bit of like this wall up, especially if you walk through singleness. I feel like I've a couple of my friends have a little bit of like, don't talk to me. I've got my act together, and that's how I'm okay. Yeah. And so talking to you about it has been really refreshing to hear and to see how you're walking through this. So tell us what you wish people knew about where you're at.
Well, I think when we talked about this before, I think people assume one of two things about singleness, especially being a little bit older and single.
Yeah.
Either they think that your life is just a box of chocolates and that you do what you want all day long, and you have no worries, no cares, and you don't have the sleeping babies, so you must have this perfect life for not sleeping babies, or that you are the other side of the coin, which is, I think, more frequently associated with singleness, is that you're sad and depressed and lonely, and just pining away constantly for husband and babies.
Your life is unfulfilled.
Yeah, unfulfilled. And I think that both of those extremes are not necessarily true. I think usually with us, just as women, usually we fluctuate in between both of those things. There's some days that are really hard and really sad and I'm lonely or whatever. And then there's some days that I'm having a blast. And
Right.
living it up, doing exactly what I want to do when I want to do it. But, most days are just your normal life. And I've tried for a long time not to focus on the fact that I'm single and just focus on the fact that God gave me this life and I'm going to do the best I can with it. I mean, I think that's with each thing that we're given in life, it doesn't have to define who we are. I don't want being single to define my whole life. I was sitting here thinking, like, what is my story with singleness? I don't know what my story is because my story is just my story, period. No,
that's it right there.
Is part of it, but it is not it.
Yep.
I just focus on my life with the Lord, and I think my life is just the same as someone who's been married, 30 years. I'm just trying to do the best I can.
Amen. I think that describes what feels different about you.
Oh, good.
It's funny, like we invited you to share about singleness, but I don't feel like you walk around as I am a single woman.
Yeah, well.
At all. Like I've never felt, which to be honest, I mean, I'm sure we've all met somebody who that
definitely
is a heavy thing.
And I have been around those people, and I don't want to be those. I'm like, I would love to get married one day. I want a husband. I don't want my husband to see someone who's like down and out.
Right.
Sad.
Right.
That's not going to be attractive, I don't think, to a man. And so I want to be someone who other people want to be around.
Right.
No matter what. And it's a choice. I mean,
that's
joy is a choice.
It's a legitimate pain on some days when you want that husband, when you want that married life, but it doesn't define you.
Right. It can't, or you lose out so much. I've been around girls who walk around just sad all the time and depressed and stuff, and I understand that because I could easily go there, but I try to make a choice not to because I want, life is too short to do that. I want to be somebody that is encouraging and uplifting and joyful and somebody that somebody would want to marry.
Yes, amen.
So anyway,
that's
my
good.
thoughts on it.
That's good. So what are some things that people have said that have just felt painful or insensitive in this walk?
The great thing is I have really awesome, sensitive friends who don't say mean stuff. Or not even mean stuff, just insensitive things. But I do think sometimes there is this things that happen just culturally or whatever where if you're single, you don't necessarily get invited to things where couples are around, I've dealt with that. I've had lots of single friends who say, well, I wasn't invited to the party tonight. I'm like, why? Well, it's all couples. So I guess they didn't want to invite me because I would be odd man out. So that part can be painful, but so I would just encourage you if you know single people to invite them to things. Like when I moved to California, my biggest fear was, well, I'm leaving my whole family, and there's times like holidays out here where I'm like, I want to be around a family. I want to be around little kids and screaming and, the whole hubbub of family life. And so when I get invited into a family, that feels really awesome. Just to be a part of life and, community and stuff.
So. No, that was so, when you shared that at the night, I was like, that's so good, because you feel the opposite sometimes, like you're being insensitive.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be insensitive. And I have close family members who are been single their whole lives and are very actually happy with their life of being single now.
Yeah.
But they walked through this journey of like, am I okay?
Yeah.
Am I okay? I'm actually okay. Like my life will not be complete when this happens or if this happens. But when you said that, it was like, I am sure I have not invited people completely in my mind, like, I don't want them to feel bad.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people think, you're doing things with your single friends, and which is right. And that's fine too. But you just don't want to only, I don't want to only be around certain folks or whatever. I want to be in all of community life.
Yeah.
And I think most single people do.
Well, and I think why would we make an assumption for somebody else?
Right. Like invite them and they
Just
can say no or
invite them.
yes.
They can say no.
Right. Yeah.
Why am I deciding that for
Totally.
you? You could not come if you don't want
Exactly.
to, but at least you know you're wanted and welcome.
That's very important.
Yes.
If you're not around, couples and life and families and stuff, it feels it's not awesome. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I love what you said about the not having your singleness define you. And it just got me thinking, like, even through being as a single mom and then the things that we're going through or whatever our journey is, it can be easy to have that be that's your definition of you, and that's what but it's not.
Right.
And we
No,
don't
it
and
can't
like
be.
the power of the choice of being like, that's not gonna define me. Like, this is gonna grow me and develop me, but that doesn't define me. And I
Right.
just love what you said about that.
I
Also
do
the choice.
too.
Yes.
I had a friend when I was younger who at every stage of her life, she was really had all this angst to get to the next stage of life. Like, or I don't know if you want to say stage, but kind of when she was single, she was dying to be engaged. And when she got engaged, she was dying to be married. She was married. She was dying to have that first kid. And like, that is how she lived. And I remember thinking, I don't want to live that way. I want to have joy no matter what place I'm in, no matter what job, no matter what. And it's, like I said, it's a choice.
Yeah.
It definitely is, I have to choose God's heart and right where I am. And
I've been that person, so that ministers to me too. I'm like, sometimes I find myself
when
guilty
you
of
see
that.
it, you're like,
just sit.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You miss the joy in each season.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even we're going to talk about a man for a minute, which is kind of against the rules. But even walking with Banning and everything he's done in life, so many people would look at what he's accomplished or the things he's got to do as like, wow. And walking with him, he would have those conversations like, oh my gosh, I'm 33 and I haven't done this, this, and this. And I'm like, what? It's just something I think we all can walk in.
Right.
We can easily miss, like,
Definitely.
like, oh, I can't wait for my kids to not wake up at night, or I can't wait for, whatever it is, we can easily dismiss where we're at.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's gone so fast where we are.
No, absolutely. I was just sitting here thinking, like, this is just 3 areas of women's lives, but there are so many. We made a list of, like, just how many different things we could talk about that would involve what do you wish people knew, and what has been hurtful or painful that people have said. And I mean, the list goes on, from women who walk through postpartum to working moms, from stay-at-home moms, from moms of little kids, from moms of teenagers. I mean, you could go on and on and on to, what it is to be a high-level executive who's in the men's world, and what it is to be a woman. And so we obviously can't talk about each one. But I want to touch one more thing, which Dana doesn't even know I'm going to ask her this. But Dana has walked with one of her girls has special needs.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if you'd be willing to share a little bit of what that has been like for you, what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And what you wish people knew.
One of the things that I've just realized recently, because as you're raising any child, special needs or not, there's things that work for a season and then things don't work anymore. Right. So you're constantly having to, just, Lord, what do I do now? All the different phases, getting direction from God for all the different phases and what's going to work. But with Olivia, I realized that I had in my mind what success was going to look like for her.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that, there's so many things that I've been standing and believing for her whole life. And I thought it was going to look a certain way. So now I'm just like I always thought nobody loves Olivia as much as we love Olivia. The best thing for her would be for her to be with us forever. And I really tried to have a really strong support for her and all kinds of help and support for her. But as she's getting older, she's changing, and she's wanting more independence.
Right.
And I'm just having to shift my whole concept of what success is with her now. She's 19. Her sisters are independent. She wants to be independent, but really in the natural, she cannot be.
Right.
So I know that God has an answer for her.
Yes.
But in this journey, especially right now, when I mentioned transition earlier, it's been extremely hard. And it's a battle of the wills. She wants independence, and we just can't give it to her. Wow. And so it's been really a challenge for us and even for her sisters,
Yeah.
Her sisters, Olivia has Prader-Willi syndrome. So that means that she's never satiated. So she wants to eat all the time. So we have to lock the food and, keep everything locked up and stuff like that. And when our sisters were home, we always did it as a family. The sisters helped, we worked together as a team. But now the sisters have moved out.
Right.
She's home alone. And she's getting a lot more strong-willed, and it's a real battle right now.
Yeah.
So, like I shared at the women's conference, one thing is that, right now, I'm in a struggle. I'm in a really hard place with her, and I'm trying to be led of the Lord, and we're trying to figure out what to do that's best for her and for us. But just like Molly was saying, that doesn't define me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's a part of my life, but that's not my whole life. That doesn't mean that there aren't great things happening in other areas that I can celebrate and that I can, thank God for. And I think sometimes when we go through hard things, we focus on that hard thing so much that we disregard all the other blessings or disregard the other things that God is doing in our life. Mm-hmm. And it's super easy to do.
Oh, yes.
Because those things become
that is the struggle.
Those things take over sometimes. Yeah. But, it's like I'm struggling in this area, but at the same time, God's doing miraculous things in that area and in other areas. So I don't want to just focus so much on that I miss out on other things, or say, like one of the things that you had said, what people say that is hurtful, and I was thinking about it, and it's like, really, I think we say the most hurtful things to ourselves. We say, I'm not good enough, or this is happening because I did that, or my past, or just all the crazy things when we try and figure out why our life is the way it is. And
that's really good.
Yeah, and so we try and come up with answers, and our answers are just out of our small understanding.
Yeah.
But we say really hard things to ourselves. And, I used to think if I had more faith, I would get pregnant. If I had bigger faith, I would, Olivia would be better and that type of thing. But it's not about that.
Yeah.
The Bible says that we have faith the size of a mustard seed. One of my favorite quotes is, I have a mustard seed and I'm not afraid to use it. So it's like, okay, Lord, today I don't feel like I have big faith. I don't even feel like I can fight this today, but I do have that much faith. I do have a mustard seed. I do have that much right now to help me get through whatever this is.
Oh, I think you totally touched on, I don't know if this is everybody, but I know me as a woman and a lot of women I talk to, we love our whys.
Yes.
Please, if you would just tell me why.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could face a whole lot of crap. Just tell me why I'm facing it.
Yeah.
And in reality, the why doesn't really solve anything, but
right.
I sure can spend a lot of time figuring out
Well, we
why.
circle in our minds why and how come and all that. But
anytime I'm in anxiety, I'm like, why am I in anxiety? It's because of this.
Right.
And then I fix that, and sure enough, the anxiety is still there.
Yeah.
So why am I in anxiety now? And I just keep going round and round and round.
Yeah.
But we want to fix things.
We want to fix
fix
things. And we want to fix things for our friends.
Yeah.
And, so that's one of the things as we're walking through these things, maybe try not to always have the answer, because we probably don't have the answer, of course, other than the Word of God, but just to really be there for that person and say, I see where you are right now, and I'm sorry that you're hurting, but I am going to hurt with you. I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to believe for you. And the day that you want to quit, I am not going to quit.
The one thing that I was thinking is, I think would have been helpful for me, and I don't know if this would be helpful for you guys, but maybe ask, like, I would have loved to be asked, like, what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
What are you wanting? Don't put what you think I should be wanting.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's good.
But what do, so that you can stand with them. Because like you said, adoption's not bad. Adoption's an amazing thing. But for your journey and where you were, even if it would have ended in adoption, being where you got your beautiful babies from is adoption, at that moment, what you were fighting for was that it wasn't anybody else's place to say, oh, you can adopt.
Right.
You can just say, okay, this is what you want. This is where your heart is.
Yeah,
your
I think
heart's
that's
desire
really
is
good.
this. Like your life wouldn't have been complete as a single mom if you would have found a husband.
Right.
You know, in those years, you need to see somebody to stand alongside you and fight with you for what you wanted.
Yeah. And one thing though, I look back, and again, we always see that the real revelation comes in the hindsight when you're like, oh,
yeah.
Because my daughter had her own kind of special needs, different, but, still very demanding of a lot of things, and took a toll on everybody, just kind of the same. But I look back and I realize just any husband, any person couldn't have walked that with me. There was stuff that I needed to do. There was stuff it needed to be me, and kind of going through the struggles that as my teenage daughters go through now, I think, man, God, if I had had a husband, they would be seeing this would be what a godly relationship looks like. They wouldn't be having these struggles. And at the end of the day, it's you don't know that. Because all of this is going to be how I'm going to meet them on that other end. And it does need to be this, because in the end, they see a mom who's still held her ground with God, and still held and was that example, and still showed that unconditional love. And that's right. And there's these things that you think what they need to see, but I know what they need to see. Yes. And you're just like, oh, okay, I'll sit down now.
Well, I wish God would line up with what I want more often. Right? I feel like life would be easier for me if he just did what I said. But
yeah,
so far his way's been better, but whatever. Well, ladies, thank you so much. Your vulnerability, your honesty, it's what makes the community that's here so beautiful. And I hope that you are encouraged out there to hear that you're not alone, that you're not crazy, that you have what it takes, that you're surrounded by women that actually want to hear and want to walk with you in the end. That, I think, is one of the most profound things, to recognize that if you can be vulnerable, most likely the person next to you is wanting to know what's really going on. But don't wait for somebody to ask you necessarily, because they probably won't, because we're all scared.
That's true. That's true.
With over 30 years of collective experience, Danny Silk and his team at Loving on Purpose have compiled the Life Academy video curriculum to help you thrive in every area of your life. Here's Danny Silk.
For centuries, we've trained our children in algebra, geography, and history to prepare them for life. Yet the skills to love well, build and protect relationships, communicate successfully through conflict, or to teach our children self-control feel all too elusive. We spend thousands of dollars on schooling throughout our life, never learning how to relate to others. That's really what has inspired me to launch the Loving on Purpose Life Academy.
And right now, JCLP listeners who sign up for the Relationships Core Track will get a 50% discount by entering the code JCLP50. Again, that's JCLP50. To find out more about the Loving on Purpose Life Academy and to sign up for the Relationships Core Track, go to LOPLifeacademy.com. Again, that's LOPLifeacademy.com.
'Cause I love you. 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 '
Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you guys liked it. I hope your lives were impacted, and we will see you next month on Authentic You.
No whisper can accuse